The combined human forces stood victorious on the scorched battlefield of New Terra. Admiral Elena Reyes watched as the last Dorian warship disintegrated against Earth's defensive grid, ending the 15-year interstellar war. Humanity had prevailed against impossible odds, their tenacity outlasting the technologically superior Saurian Empire. Reyes stood on the command deck of the HSS Intrepid, our flagship throughout the final 3 years of the conflict. The vessel bore the scars of dozens of engagements, its hull patched and reinforced so many times that engineers joked less than 30% of the original structure remained. Much like humanity itself, the ship had been broken and rebuilt repeatedly, emerging stronger each time. "Admiral, the Exorian command has transmitted their formal surrender," reported Communications Officer Patel, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etched on her face. "All remaining enemy vessels are powering down weapons systems." A cheer erupted across the command deck, officers embracing and weeping openly after years of disciplined restraint. Reyes allowed herself a small smile, but remained at her post. Victory felt hollow after so much sacrifice. Earth's population had been reduced by a third. 17 colony worlds lay in ruins. The butcher's bill for freedom had been paid in billions of lives. "Relay to all ships," she ordered after the celebration subsided. "Stand down to condition yellow. Maintain defensive posture until verification protocols are complete." The celebration across human colonies lasted barely 48 hours. Reyes had just finished addressing the Terran Alliance Council when Lieutenant Commander Wei Chen requested an urgent private meeting. She found him in a secure communications room, his typically calm demeanor shattered. "I apologize for the interruption, Admiral," Wei said, activating a holographic display. "But our data recovery teams extracted these files from the Exorian flagship's central database." The projection displayed tactical information about Earth's defenses, military movements, and strategic vulnerabilities, information that could only have come from high-ranking human officials. Reyes felt the blood drain from her face as she recognized fleet deployments that had been classified at the highest levels. "This isn't random intelligence gathering." Wei continued, his voice tight as he projected a 3-dimensional map showing 15 major human defeats. Each of these battles was compromised before our ships even arrived. Someone gave them our playbook. He enlarged the holographic display, showing ship movements during the massacre at New Madrid Colony. The Atorians knew exactly when our reinforcements would arrive and precisely where our blind spots were. 8,000 civilians died because someone told the enemy exactly when to strike. Reyes scrolled through the data, her hands steady despite the rage building inside her. The losses at Proxima Centauri, the ambush at Tau Ceti, the fall of the Arcturus defense platform, all catastrophic defeats that had nearly broken humanity's resolve, all carefully orchestrated with inside information. "How many?" she asked simply. Wei hesitated before responding. "At least 30 high-level collaborators that we can identify with certainty, possibly twice that number in supporting roles." The holographic display shifted to show identified conspirators: 3 fleet admirals, 7 senators, the former defense minister, corporate executives from major defense contractors, and leading scientists from research divisions. Many faces she recognized, some she had considered friends. A final data point made her blood run cold. Travel records indicated most had fled human space in the chaotic final months of the war, using the confusion of the Exorian retreat to disappear to distant sectors of the galaxy. They knew we'd win eventually, Reyes realized, studying the escape trajectories. They prepared their exits years ago. Wei nodded grimly. "The war is over, Admiral, but I believe our real mission is just beginning." Reyes stared at the faces of the traitors, committing each to memory. Prepare a secure briefing. Eyes only for the Alliance Council. And why? She paused, her voice hardening. Begin assembling dossiers on every collaborator. Their locations, their resources, their connections. We're going after them, we asked. The war was just the first act, Reyes replied. Now comes the reckoning. 3 months after the victory, the newly formed Terran Alliance Congress convened an emergency session in the underground chambers of New Geneva. The public narrative celebrated peace, but behind reinforced doors, representatives from 100 human worlds demanded justice. The chamber bore the scars of war, hastily repaired blast damage from Axorian bombing, run 2 years prior had left visible patches in the marble walls. Many of the representatives wore military decorations alongside their civilian attire, a visual reminder that this generation of leaders had earned their positions on battlefields as well as in political arenas. These traitors cost us billions of lives, declared President Santiago, her scarred face evidence of her own sacrifices in the war. She tapped a control panel, and holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing devastated colony worlds. Entire populations reduced to ash, while they profited from our suffering. Admiral Reyes watched from a corner of the chamber, noting the reactions of the representatives. Some shouted for immediate military deployments to known neutral zones where traitors might hide. Others called for public trials in absentia. The volume rose as competing demands echoed through the chamber. President Santiago raised a hand, and the room fell silent. We cannot afford a scattered, disorganized response. Our reconstruction efforts require focus. What we need is a specialized unit, operating with full authority but minimal footprint. The vote was unanimous. They created an elite unit called MISOS, tasked with hunting down those who had betrayed their species. The name wasn't just a convenient acronym. It embodied humanity's response to treachery. 3 days later, Admiral Reyes stood before the selection committee, her dress uniform adorned with battle ribbons. I don't want warriors blinded by vengeance, she stated. I need specialists who can think like our targets. The committee approved her unconventional selections without argument. Her reputation had been forged in impossible victories against the Thorians. If Reyes wanted these specific people, no one would challenge her judgment. The team assembled on Landing Pad 7 of the New Geneva military complex, each arriving separately as rain fell from a perpetually grey sky. The Retribution waited for them. A stealth vessel originally designed for deep reconnaissance behind Saurian lines, now repurposed for their mission. Its matte black hull absorbed light and sensor scans alike, making it virtually undetectable when operating at full stealth capacity. Lieutenant Commander Wai Chen arrived first, carrying only a small case containing his personal data arrays. His eidetic memory and analytical skills had saved countless lives during the war, predicting Saurian attack patterns when conventional tactical systems failed. Zara Okoro followed minutes later, her civilian clothes and casual demeanor belying her history. A former criminal hacker whose infiltration of military networks had nearly triggered an international incident, she had chosen service over imprisonment when the war began. Our understanding of digital security measures, both human and alien, had no equal. Dr. Marcus Singh emerged from a diplomatic shuttle, having cut short his work establishing communication protocols with former Xorian client species. His expertise in xenopsychology extended beyond academic understanding. He could think like non-human species, anticipating reactions that most humans would miss entirely. Major Diana Torres arrived last, moving with deliberate precision despite the injuries that military medical technology couldn't fully repair. 3 years in a Xorian prison camp had left physical scars and an unmatched understanding of enemy psychology. Her escape had become legendary among Special Forces operators. Admiral Reyes met them at the ship's entry ramp, rain streaming down her uniform as she studied each face. These weren't the fresh-faced heroes celebrated in media broadcasts. These were complex individuals with complicated histories, exactly what the mission required. Our targets have wealth, connections, and a significant head start, Reyes told them as they entered the ship. The interior lighting revealed the advanced systems that made the Retribution unique, a combination of human innovation and reverse-engineered Xorian technology. They believe the chaos of post-war reconstruction will keep us distracted. She activated the ship's navigation system, holographic star charts materializing around them. Intelligence reports that identified their first target, former Treasury Secretary Frederick Lambton, whose financial expertise had been used to funnel war funds to Xorian proxies. "Let's show them how wrong they are," she said as the ship's engines hummed to life, lifting them toward the stars. Frederick Lambton, former Treasury Secretary, had disappeared with billions in war funds. Intelligence placed him on Helios Prime, a neutral banking world where towering crystal spires housed the wealth of 1,000 species. The Retribution emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Helios system, maintaining a passive scan profile to avoid detection. Through the viewports, the planet gleamed like a jewel, its surface covered with crystalline structures that reflected the light of its twin suns. Helios Prime has maintained neutrality through 3 galactic conflicts, Wei explained during the mission briefing. Their banking houses serve clients from both sides of any war, no questions asked. Their security forces are minimal, but their surveillance is unmatched. Zara projected a 3-dimensional map of the capital city. Traditional infiltration methods won't work here. The entire planet is essentially one massive financial institution. Every credit transaction, every communication, every molecular scan at customs, it's all monitored. "So how do we get to Lambton?" Major Torres asked, studying potential entry points with a tactical eye. "We don't break in," Admiral Reyes replied. "We walk through the front door." The plan required precision timing and perfect execution. Dr. Singh would pose as a Centaurian artifact dealer looking to establish new investment portfolios following the war's end. Major Torres would serve as his security specialist, her enhanced senses scanning for threats while appearing to be merely decorative. Wei and Zara would work the financial networks for the Retribution, providing real-time intelligence and digital support. Security here isn't about weapons. Zara explained as she programmed sophisticated false identities into their communication devices. It's about appearance. No one questions you if you look like you belong. 3 days later, Dr. Singh and Major Torres stepped off a luxury transport ship, dressed in the latest fashions from the core worlds. Their luggage contained genuine artifacts recovered from abandoned Xorian outposts, just valuable enough to establish credibility without attracting too much attention. They checked into the Crystal Prominence, the tallest banking spire on the planet, where preliminary intelligence suggested Lambton had established his new operation. The suite offered a breathtaking view of the city below, a labyrinth of translucent walkways connecting buildings that housed more combined wealth than entire star systems. Facial recognition is active in the main atrium. Wei's voice came through their secured comm channel. Lambton is scheduled to attend a reception for new clients this evening. 19th floor, Azure Reception Hall. Dr. Singh adjusted his formal attire in the mirror. and you're certain he won't recognize us. He never worked directly with any of us during the war, Admiral Reyes replied from the Retribution. And our intelligence suggests he's had substantial genetic modifications to alter his appearance. He's not expecting pursuit this far from human space. The reception hall gleamed with polished surfaces that reflected ambient light in soothing patterns. Representatives from a dozen species mingled, discussing investment opportunities and the post-war economy. Dr. Singh circulated with practiced ease, his Denup psychology training allowing him to navigate the complex social dynamics of multiple cultures simultaneously. Major Torres maintained her position near the entrance, her enhanced senses cataloging everyone in the room. Southeast corner, she sub-vocalized into her private consultation table. The human with genetic modifications to his jawline and cheekbones. Wei's voice confirmed what Torres had spotted. That's him. Biometric analysis matches his baseline patterns despite the modifications. He's disguised his appearance, but not his mannerisms. They observed Lambton throughout the evening. The former Treasury Secretary moved with confidence, advising clients on investment opportunities in reconstruction projects throughout former war zones, projects he knew about because he had helped design humanity's post-war economic recovery plan before betraying his species. He's using insider knowledge of our reconstruction needs to position his clients for maximum profit. Wei reported after analysing Lambton's conversation patterns. He's still exploiting humanity, just from a different angle. The trap was set for the following morning. Dr. Singh arranged a private consultation with Lambton, presenting himself as a wealthy collector interested in diversifying his portfolio. The meeting location: Lambton's private sky garden, where exotic plants from across the galaxy created a paradise for the privileged. Remember, Admiral Reyes reminded them as they prepared, we need him alive. Lambton's secured files revealed connections to Dr. Eliza Warren, a xenobiologist who had disappeared from Earth 3 years before the war's end. The team had extracted the former Treasury Secretary from Helios Prime after a tense confrontation in his sky garden, narrowly evading planetary security during their escape. Back aboard the Retribution, Admiral Reyes studied the recovered data while the ship travelled through hyperspace. Warren was one of our brightest minds, she explained to the team. Her work on human genetic adaptation to alien environments saved thousands of colonists in the early war years. Wei projected a holographic timeline. Her defection coincided with the Battle of Arcturus. Initial investigation suggested she died in the attack, but these financial records show regular payments to a research facility in the Cygnus Reach. Zara expanded the display, showing the facility's location. It's positioned in orbit around a neutron star. Perfect cover for energy-intensive research, and far enough for established routes that no one would stumble across it accidentally. What could she be working on that requires that much power? Major Torres asked. Dr. Singh's expression darkened. Based on her specialization and these equipment manifests, advanced human genetic manipulation. The Cygnus Reach existed at the edge of charted space, a region so sparsely populated that ships could travel for weeks without encountering another vessel. The Retribution approached the facility using minimal power, appearing as little more than space debris on most scanning systems. Her defenses are modelled after human military specifications, Wei noted as they studied the approach. She's using what she knows about our tactics against us. The facility itself resembled a massive wheel, its central hub connected to radiating spokes that ended in specialized research modules. Occasional energy pulses traveled along the structure, powering systems that remained mysterious from their current distance. We need to understand what she's doing before we move in, Admiral Reyes decided. Major Tors, you'll lead the infiltration team. We need access to their central database without triggering security protocols. The infiltration began 12 hours later. Tors, wearing an environmental suit equipped with adaptive camouflage, launched from the Retribution in a maintenance pod programmed to mimic the facility's routine automated repair drones. Wei had identified a maintenance tunnel designed for these drones, providing Taurus with a narrow but viable entry point. "I'm through the outer hull," Taurus reported as she navigated the cramped passage. Minimal security in the maintenance tunnels. They weren't expecting anyone to access the facility this way. She made her way toward the central processing hub, planting data relays at key junctions to establish a secure connection back to the Retribution. The interior of the facility gleamed with pristine efficiency, a stark contrast to the improvised military installations she had grown accustomed to during the war. Life signs detected. Wei warmed through the comm link. 2 corridors ahead. Pattern suggests security patrol. Torres pressed herself into a recessed alcove as 2 figures passed, not human guards, but automated security drones modelled after Xorian combat units. She waited until they rounded a corner before continuing toward her objective. The central data node was housed in a circular chamber filled with holographic displays. Torres connected Zara's specialized decryption device to the main terminal and waited while it bypassed the security protocols. "I'm in," Zara announced from the Retribution, downloading research data now. What they discovered stripped away any professional detachment they still maintained. Dr. Warren had been experimenting on human subjects, refugees, prisoners of war, and civilians who had been reported dead years ago. Hundreds of stasis chambers contained individuals in various stages of genetic modification. "She's not just studying human weaknesses," Dr. Singh reported as he analyzed the incoming data, his voice hollow. "She's attempting to weaponize human potential, creating biological enhancements that could transform people into living weapons." Torres made her way deeper into the facility, following the data trail to locate Dr. Warren herself. Instead, she found something that made even her combat-hardened resolve falter. A chamber filled with tanks containing what appeared to be growing human forms, each modified in ways that pushed the boundary of what could still be considered human. "Admiral," she whispered into her comm, "I think we found something worse than betrayal." The capture of Dr. Warren had been costly. The team had managed to secure the scientist and her most critical research data, but not before she triggered a partial self-destruct sequence that damaged the Retribution during their escape. Admiral Reyes ordered the ship to a remote outpost for repairs, while they processed their findings and planned their next move. The data from Warren's research facility points to a larger operation, Wei explained, projecting a navigational chart in the ship's briefing room. Multiple supply shipments were directed to Vesta 9, a mineral-rich planet in the Outer Rim. Zara expanded the display, showing mining operation schematics. It's run by former General Isaac Reynolds. His death was reported during the Siege of Europa, but these shipping manifests are authenticated with his biometric signature. The planet Vesta 9 appeared as a rust-colored sphere in the holographic display. Once considered too remote for profitable mining, its valuable mineral deposits had become strategic resources during the war. Now, it operated outside the jurisdiction of the recovering Terran Alliance. Reynolds commanded the 7th Fleet during the war's early years, Admiral Reyes noted. He had access to evacuation protocols for civilian populations in contested zones. Dr. Singh studied the colony's communication patterns. That explains these population numbers. This isn't just a mining operation, it's a full settlement. Over 20,000 humans. Prisoners? Torres asked. Unlikely, Singh replied. The infrastructure includes educational facilities, recreational areas, medical centres, all consistent with a permanent civilian colony. Wei's analysis completed with a troubling conclusion. Based on the timing of supply shipments and personnel transport, Reynolds began moving people to Vesta-9 3 years before the war ended. He's told them they're refugees, Wei explained after intercepting communications. They think they're building a new human enclave under alien protection. Admiral Reyes considered their options. A direct assault would put thousands of innocent people at risk, people who believe they're building a sanctuary. Not to mention alerting Reynolds before we can capture him, Torres added. The infiltration plan took shape over the next 3 days. Rather than a military approach, Nemesis would insert operatives into the colony itself. Major Torres and Wei would enter as newly arrived workers, with Torres modifying her appearance to prevent recognition from her well-publicized war record. Zara would establish herself in the colony's communications hub, while Dr. Singh and Admiral Reyes monitored the operation from the repaired Retribution in high orbit. The worker transport shuttle descended through Vesta-9's thin atmosphere, carrying Torres and Wei along with 24 actual labourers recruited from various outposts. Through the viewport, Torres observed the colony, a sprawling complex of prefabricated structures and mining equipment nestled in a valley between rust-coloured mountains. "Remember your cover," Wei murmured as they prepared to disembark. "You're Jana Novak, Industrial Systems Specialist from the Proxima colonies. I'm Ken Lay, Environmental Engineer." Torres nodded, adjusting the work coveralls that concealed her combat-ready physique. "How long before Zara gets communication access?" 48 hours, if her credentials hold up. The new arrivals were processed through a reception centre, where a cheerful administrator welcomed them to New Hope Colony. Torres noted the propaganda displayed on large screens throughout the facility, images of devastated Earth cities and reports of Taurian occupation forces. "You're safe now," the administrator assured them. "General Reynolds negotiated our protection when Earth fell. Here, we're building humanity's future." Torres exchanged a glance with Wei. The lies were more elaborate than they had anticipated. These people truly believed Earth had lost the war, that they were among the fortunate few to escape extinction. For the next week, they worked alongside miners, experiencing the harsh conditions firsthand. Torres was assigned to maintenance crews repairing extraction equipment, while Wei joined environmental monitoring teams. They discovered Reynolds had created a society built on carefully constructed lies. Workers believed they were extracting minerals to buy humanity's survival, never knowing they were simply enriching Reynolds and his alien partners. "This isn't just a betrayal of Earth," Torres reported during a secure communication window. "It's an entire society founded on deception." Admiral Reyes' response was clear. "Then our mission isn't just to capture Reynolds. It's to bring the truth to his victims." The liberation of Vesta-9 had transformed Nemesis' mission. What began as the pursuit of individual traitors had evolved into something broader, a crusade to reclaim humanity's fragmented diaspora. General Reynolds now sat in a containment cell aboard the Retribution, the colony he had deceived, beginning the difficult process of reconnecting with a victorious Earth they had believed destroyed. Admiral Reyes studied the latest intelligence briefing as the ship moved through hyperspace. Their next target presented challenges unlike any they had faced before. Admiral Helena Voss, Wei explained, displaying the profile of a distinguished officer whose strategic brilliance had once made her the youngest fleet commander in Earth's history. Her knowledge of our tactical protocols allowed the Victorians to anticipate our movements during the Battle of Tau Ceti. 8,000 lives lost in a single engagement. What made the pursuit of Voss particularly complicated was her location, Proxima Station, a massive diplomatic hub where hundreds of species maintained embassies and conducted interstellar negotiations. The station administrators value neutrality above all else, Wei continued. Any enforcement action could trigger an interstellar incident involving dozens of species. Zara projected a holographic model of the station, a massive rotating wheel with spokes connecting the central hub to outer rings that housed different diplomatic sectors. Security there isn't designed to keep people out, but to keep conflicts contained. Every embassy has sovereign territory status. We can't go in as military, Torres observed. They'd lock down the station immediately. Admiral Reyes nodded, which is why we're going as diplomats. The plan required their most sophisticated cover identities yet. Admiral Reyes would pose as an ambassador seeking to establish trade relations with species previously aligned with Victorians. Dr. Singh would serve as her cultural attaché, while Torres adopted the role of security advisor. Wei and Zara would remain aboard the Retribution, which would dock at the station under commercial registry. 3 days later, the team arrived at Proxima Station. The massive structure gleamed against the backdrop of space, its central spine connecting rotating habitat rings that generated artificial gravity. Vessels from dozens of worlds moved in carefully choreographed patterns around docking ports. Remember, we're here to establish diplomatic connections. Reyes reminded her team as they prepared to disembark. Our target is information first, apprehension second. The diplomatic sector bustled with representatives from across the galaxy. Species that had been bitter enemies during the war now negotiated trade agreements and territorial boundaries. Reyes noted the subtle hierarchies at play, who deferred to whom, which delegates commanded attention when they spoke. Dr. Singh's expertise proved invaluable as they navigated the complex social dynamics. The Aldebaran delegation to your left, they were major suppliers to the Dorians. Their trade representative might have information about Voss. Their first breakthrough came during a reception hosted by the Meridian Collective, a neutral power that had provided mediation services during the final peace negotiations. Reyes engaged their ambassador in conversation about reconstruction efforts while Singh circulated, gathering snippets of information. "I have a location," he murmured upon rejoining Reyes. Voss is registered as a military history consultant to the Jaxiri Consortium. She maintains private quarters in the Outer Ring, Section 47. Torres subtly scanned the gathering. She's not present, but security patterns suggest she regularly attends these functions. What they discovered as they continued their investigation disturbed even their seasoned team. Voss hadn't simply fled to save herself. She had established a lucrative business selling human military strategies to various powers interested in understanding how humanity had ultimately defeated the technologically superior Saurians. "She's commodifying our sacrifices," Torres said with quiet fury after intercepting a partial transmission. "Packaging the tactics that cost us millions of lives as strategic consulting." Rather than a direct confrontation, Admiral Reyes implemented a strategy of isolation. Over the next several days, they met privately with representatives from every major power on the station, sharing evidence of Voss's actions during the war. Not demanding her surrender, but systematically ensuring that every diplomatic door began closing to her. "We're not pursuing her," Reyes explained to her team. "We're shrinking her world until there's nowhere left to hide." The diplomatic approach on Proxima Station had yielded results beyond their expectations. Admiral Voss, finding herself suddenly isolated as her alien clients withdrew, had attempted to flee the station with classified data. The resulting security incident had led to her detention by station authorities and eventual transfer to Nemesis custody. With 3 high-profile traitors secured, Admiral Reyes convened a strategy session aboard the Retribution. The holographic display in the command center showed their most complex target yet. Terran Dynamics, Way explained, projecting the corporate logo, a stylized Earth surrounded by a double helix. They provided the Victorians with cutting-edge human technology throughout the war, while publicly manufacturing defensive systems for our military. Zara expanded the display to show a sprawling network of subsidiaries and shell companies. Unlike our previous targets, this isn't one person. It's an entire organizational structure. The corporation fractured after the war, spreading its operations across dozens of systems beyond Alliance jurisdiction. At the center of the display was Dominic Crane, the corporation's CEO. His dossier showed a brilliant mind who had built a technological empire before the war, then leveraged his connections to play both sides of the conflict. Traditional military tactics won't work against a corporate entity, Reyes acknowledged, studying the display. We need to become investors, not invaders. The plan that emerged was their most sophisticated yet. Nemesis would create a front company, ostensibly representing neutral worlds, looking to invest in post-war reconstruction. Their approach would be patient and methodical, acquiring minor Terran Dynamics subsidiaries to gain access to corporate data networks. We'll need to establish a legitimate business presence, Way noted. That takes time. Admiral Reyes nodded. Time we'll use to understand exactly how deep this betrayal goes. 3 weeks later, the team had established operations on Nova Mercantia, a commerce hub where corporate registration required minimal scrutiny. Reyes and Singh presented themselves as representatives of the Interstellar Development Consortium, a newly formed investment group. Torres adopted the role of security consultant, while Zara worked behind the scenes, creating digital trails that appeared to be routine business operations. Their first acquisition was Stellaris Manufacturing, a minor subsidiary producing atmospheric processors. The transaction gave them access to limited corporate data networks, which Zara methodically exploited to mount the larger organization. Their security is impressive, she reported during an encrypted briefing. Multiple layers of protection, compartmentalized information, but there's always a human element to exploit. That exploitation came through careful profiling of key executives. Dr. Singh analyzed psychological assessments, identifying potential weak points in the corporate hierarchy. They found their opening in Elise Chen, a vice president who had joined Terran Dynamics late in the war and seemed unaware of its darker operations. She's responsible for their legitimate reconstruction contracts, Singh explained. Based on her communication patterns, she believes she's helping rebuild what the war destroyed. The approach was careful, a seemingly chance meeting at an industry conference, followed by a business proposal that appealed to Chen's genuine desire to aid recovery efforts. Over the following weeks, she provided them with increasing access to corporate systems, believing she was facilitating a partnership to expand infrastructure development on war-damaged worlds. What they discovered as they penetrated deeper into Terran Dynamics networks exceeded their worst expectations. The corporation hadn't merely sold technology to the Gorians. It had actively designed weapons specifically to counter human defenses, providing the enemy with detailed analyses of vulnerabilities in Earth's protection systems. They weren't just profiteers, Way said grimly as they reviewed the evidence. They were architects of some of our worst defeats. More disturbing were the plans for post-war operations. Terran Dynamics had positioned itself to profit from reconstruction by first ensuring maximum destruction. Subsidiaries were already securing contracts to rebuild systems their parent company had helped destroy. As they compiled evidence, a pattern emerged in Crane's movements. The CEO maintained a low profile, but Dr. Singh identified a recurring behavior. "He's a collector," Singh explained, displaying auction records, specifically of Saurian religious artifacts. "There's a major auction scheduled next week on Talos II. Admiral Reyes studied the information. Then we'll be there too, not as soldiers or diplomats this time. As buyers," Taurus concluded, understanding the approach. "The most motivated buyers in the galaxy," Reyes confirmed. The capture of Dominic Crane had yielded more than just another traitor for justice. The Terran Dynamics CEO had maintained meticulous records, insurance against betrayal by his own allies. These records, once decrypted by Zara, revealed something that shook even Admiral Reyes's resolve. "It can't be right," she said, staring at the holographic display in the Retribution's secure briefing room. The evidence before her pointed to one inescapable conclusion. The architect behind the network of human collaborators was Admiral Jonathan Mercer, once Earth's most decorated hero and Reyes's own mentor. The data is verified across multiple sources, Wei confirmed gently. Mercer coordinated the entire network of traitors from the beginning. Mercer had disappeared after leading a supposedly doomed last stand at the Battle of Proxima Centauri 6 years earlier. His sacrifice had inspired humanity during one of the war's darkest periods. Memorial statues stood on a dozen worlds. Military academies bore his name. He was reported dead with honours, Wei said, reviewing the battle records. His tactics were studied at the academy as examples of noble sacrifice. Dr. Singh studied Reyes's reaction with professional concern. "This is personal for you." The Admiral nodded slowly. "He recruited me to officer training, mentored me through my early command positions." Her voice remained steady despite the betrayal that cut deeper than any before. "He shaped my understanding of duty." The coordinates extracted from Crane's files led to an uncharted planet deep in former Xorian space, deliberately erased from navigation databases. The Retribution approached with extreme caution, its advanced stealth systems fully engaged. Energy signatures indicate a settlement, Taurus reported from the sensor station. "Far more advanced than we expected. Population estimate between 5 and 7,000. The planet appeared habitable but harsh, a rugged landscape of mountains and valleys with a breathable atmosphere, but minimal surface water. Scans revealed a settlement nestled in a protected valley, its architecture a curious blend of human and Saurian design elements. It's not just a hideout, Wei realized as they processed the data. It's a colony. Using the Retribution's advanced surveillance systems, they observed the settlement for 3 days. What they discovered wasn't a prison camp or military outpost, but a functioning society. Humans moved freely, working alongside a small number of Taurians in apparent cooperation. "They're building something," Taurus noted, focusing the sensors on a construction project at the settlement's edge. "It appears to be a ship, but the design doesn't match any known human or Xorian configuration." The infiltration plan leveraged the settlement's most significant vulnerability, its regular supply shipments. Zar identified a scheduled delivery vessel and created falsified credentials that would allow Torres and Wei to join the crew. Dr. Singh would analyze data from within the Retribution, while Admiral Reyes made the difficult decision to lead the ground team herself. "He was my mentor," she explained when Torres questioned the decision. "I need to see this with my own eyes." They entered the colony during its Foundation Day celebration, an event commemorating the establishment of what locals called New Horizon. The settlement's central plaza was filled with humans celebrating what they clearly believed was a new beginning for their species. Rias, disguised as a supply coordinator, moved through the crowd with practiced ease. The citizens appeared healthy and purposeful, their conversations filled with references to collaborative projects and technological advancements. "These people aren't prisoners," she subvocalized into her comm unit. "They believe in whatever Mercer has told them." Wei's voice responded with professional detachment. "Target located. Central administrative building, upper level. Security is present but minimal." Reyes made her way toward the structure, a graceful tower combining human architectural principles with Saurian materials. Her mind filled with questions only Mercer could answer. Why had he betrayed everything they had fought for? What could possibly justify the deaths of billions? As she entered the building, she touched the small earth insignia hidden beneath her disguise, a reminder of the world she had sworn to protect and the oath Mercer had once helped her take. "I have visual confirmation," she reported as she spotted a familiar figure through a doorway ahead. Despite the years and subtle physical changes, she instantly recognized the man who had shaped her understanding of duty and sacrifice. "Admiral Mercer is alive, moving to make contact."